Hello, Prabhagaru. So, hi,
Ah, Good evening.
good evening. So we
నమస్కారాలండి
this,
అందరికి.
yeah.
అందరికీ నమస్కారం.
So, welcome everyone. It's a first, I mean, this is the first review specific meeting, as I mentioned. And after a lovely New Year start and a happy Sankranti, we are all here meeting to share reviews on two interesting books. First book will be Capital by Thomas Piketty. The reviewer is Dr.M.Umadhar Patnaik garu. I would like to give it to him to take up for the review.
Thank you, Radhika. Good evening, everybody. As she already said, my review is on the book Capital in the 21st Century by Thomas Piketty. I hope everybody can see that. Capital in the 21st Century
we can see.
by Thomas Piketty. Well, it's a very big book, as you see. It's almost 690, 700 pages of book. So, to be honest, I have not read everything completely. I got the gist of it. Maybe it's too big a book. It could have been made smaller too. Anyway, and I'm not an economist either. So it is a very immature presentation that I'll be giving of this particular book. Earlier, I did review one of the books by Amartya Sen, Inequality. We probably talk about that too in the middle there. This book is also about inequality of wealth or income throughout the world, especially the income share of the wealthy capitalists against the income share of the labor. This whole discussion is about that, and which in turn might lead to certain disturbances. What were the disturbances that we had in the past? What are the kind of things that we expect in the future? It's about this book. This book is written by Thomas Piketty, professor of economics at Advanced School of Social Sciences at Paris. He was also associate chair of Paris School of Economics. He was also at London School of Economics and at MIT. So with a lot of years of experience, and also, as he says, he has hands-on a huge amount of data available, which was exploited by him, or rather, which was analyzed by him. The data available for over a period of 150 years. Apparently, French actually keep data in a very systematic way, as far going back as 1850s or so. Even the US releases all the income tax, data, and apparently he has been able to gather the data, doing a lot of time series analysis on all those things. He came up with certain of those observations, which apparently, as other people would say, is known to many, but such kind of a analysis is actually vindicating what everybody is quite worried about the inequality that seems to persist, especially the wealthy few who have inherited perhaps a lot of capital from their forefathers seem to be at vantage point in continuing to make more wealth. If there's an industrialist who is able to put a lot of capital, and what is the share of the revenue that comes out of this capital? What is the share of the income that comes out of this capital? How much share does he take? And how much share does the laborer take? And he says that at this stage, there seemed to be a huge, disparity coming between the two things, and that difference seems to be growing alarmingly. So this book lays down as a mathematical. There is no mathematics in it, but it lays down the framework in which it is all done. Some of the theoretical calculations and ideas are all explained, and down the line he shows the data and explains on the basis of the data what his conclusions are. And I think it has 4 parts. This book has about 4 parts. The first 2 parts are all about, the understanding of the capital and the share between the labor and the capital. And there's several examples. And the last 2 parts are specific case studies in comparison with the economy of US or some of the European countries. And finally, some of his observations, some of his prescriptions for improvement. See, what happens is, as we have said last time also, when reviewing Amartya Sen's book, there is also about inequality, by the way, about inequality of well-being of the individuals in the world around, right? But that book is completely different in what he was trying to present. It was mathematical. It was, developed in and not on the basis of the empirical evidence. It's more through equations and through his analysis of the equations and all that. And he also suggests a different kind of a what is called capability approach. Okay, I should say something about that also. What he says is that the individual's well-being in Amartya Sen's book, if you really recall, the individual's well-being is what a primary importance, a moral importance for everybody. And how do you achieve that? Okay, and how do you achieve his capabilities? It's not the measure of where he is, whether he has the potential to do something, not because he's right to do that, but he has the capacity to do that. Okay, there's a difference between the two things. Okay, let's say freedom of expression is given, okay, is guaranteed to every individual, but okay, I think sorry, Sridhar Garu, okay, sure, I'm already on the review. I talk to you later then. Bye. Sorry, I think he was not able to come. That's what he told me. So the thing is, freedom of expression, freedom of all these rights are given to you through Constitution. Yet, would the person be in a position to really use that freedom? Does the person have the capacity to use that freedom? Can he raise up to use that freedom? And that is the difference. Capability is having the capacity to actually exploit that freedom that he has in actually asserting himself to be somebody or to do something. Okay, so capabilities is what we have to really develop in an individual. That is what the argument there. For example, you take 2 individuals are given the same amenities, are having the same educational qualifications, working at the same place, the pay is same, everything, but are they really enjoying their life equally? If one of them is physically handicapped, does the state actually provide enough to see that he enjoys the equal well-being as the other person who is otherwise generally well fit? In the sense that, for example, this handicapped man has to go to work. He has to come in his wheelchair. It's very difficult for him to really reach the workplace. It becomes difficult. But had the state been arranged in such a way that, hey, he comes in the wheelchair to the bus stop, and the bus has some kind of a equipment which lifts him very easily, and then you take him, he also doesn't take too much time to travel to the workplace. So certain such things that state has to provide to same environment which gives same capabilities for the individuals if it is possible. That was his. Anyway, what this book is all about is, from the empirical evidence, he notices that life in the late 18th or 19th century, especially through the Industrial Revolution, a lot of people seem to have amassed a lot of wealth. Enormous of wealth was accumulated by few individuals, and somehow or other in an industrial revolution, seems like all this labor are kind of so busy working and desperate really to meet both ends and working all the time. And so there is a lot of despair amongst them. It's very difficult for them to take, that the wealthy man is taking away big share of the income, and he has very little to take into be the home, oftentimes in a very, his own life is in a very bad condition. So that seems to create a lot of dissent. However, he says apparently that scenario has changed towards the 20th century, especially due to the wars, the two world wars and certain other revolutions. There seemed to have been a dismantling of most of this wealth for several of the people. And right after the war, of course, everybody is trying to, especially within Europe and even in US, everybody is trying to come back to life by the hardworking individual with his knowledge and education, with his skills, is able to grow. And there was a opportunity. Indeed, if you go back to Karl Marx, somewhere around late 1850s or so, Karl Marx has really put down a wonderful work, Das Kapital, which actually, in a sense, warns that economy that is based on the individual's profit somehow will be unsustainable, and somehow or other this dissent or this conflict between the labor and the wealthy investor would always come in for, and eventually will break down things, and there may be some kind of a revolution or something. Indeed, he became a his theories have really feeded to the revolution of, let's say, a Bolshevik revolution or other revolutions all around the world, which actually toppled wealthy oligarchs and established some other governmental organizations. However, if you look at the United States of America, if the word Marxism or Karl Marx and Das Kapital, why in America, even in Europe too, is in some sense considered to be of a bad connotation. The word Marxist must be a very difficult thing to take. And somehow or other, after the two world wars, the economy turned out in such a way that the capitalists did not really have a big chance of growing, because mostly there was not much of a capital. And therefore, the Marxist ideology was somehow dismissed, and the environment is also seemed to have been such as not to subscribe to the theories of the Marx and Engels. Right? However, in the late 80s of this 20th century, coming into the 21st century, there seems to be a huge accumulation of wealth in various places. So he goes on studying. He looks at the income flow of several big companies. He looks at the list of billionaires and how they have grown. And he looks at the even endowments of various different universities themselves. Also gives you a kind of a hint as to the growth of the wealthier lot is capped around somewhere. Average growth is about 8.5%. That's a very high growth, while the economy doesn't seem to grow more than 5%. What he says is that if the growth of an individual wealth is more than the growth of the economy, that is going to somehow create the disparity, that is going to slowly change the economy into one in which it is centered by the few elite. Indeed, we talk about lower income group, middle income group, and maybe upper class, let's say lower class, middle class, upper class. He says about 50% of the people are in the lower class. About 40% are in the middle class. So the upper class is 10%. So this 10% actually amongst them also very well-to-do people, and who are actually holding the entire economy, they are two different parts. 9% of them are well-to-do, while 1% are the people who are apparently in control of most of the economy. It seems like the wealth of the top 1% of the world is more than the wealth of the 50% of the bottom spectrum of the whole economy. And that kind of a disparity, he says, actually eventually going to lead several of the European countries and America, especially because his statistics is so much from the statistics of United States. He says they might get into the same kind of situations that have prevailed towards the end of the late 18th or late 19th or early 20th century, where it has created some revolutions and toppling out the governments and so on. Indeed, he says, he actually even cites examples of one thing I saw reading it, even though he did not mention clearly, that the experience of the French people of the French Revolution really plays a big role in the way the thing is presented. The French Revolution, which is one of the bloodiest revolutions that was there, somewhere around 1789 to 1799, ended up murdering the King Charles XVI and beheading his wife, Antoinette. I forgot her name, Mary Antoinette. I forgot her name. Sorry. So this is the kind of a scenario he seems to worry may come in forward. As much as he says he doesn't subscribe to the writings of the Marx, Karl Marx, he seemed to portray the same thing in this entire work. So, as I said, if I try to say, basically his interest is really seeing that the share of the income out of the capital income, how is this shared between the people who have the capital and the labor? And 21st century seems to be again a repetition of what happened in the 19th century, unless there is some kind of a concerted effort worldwide to ensure that some precautionary measures are taken to avoid any kind of a serious emotional changes. Okay, he says that maybe the wealthy have to be taxed in a very high way, but apparently that is not politically viable. Most of the people perhaps would not like something like that. But taxing very high to the wealthy would, you think, will contribute enough revenues to the government, or maybe will lower the rate at which they are earning. Indeed, he also actually brings out one particular index, which he seems to be quite important. That index is the capital versus the income ratio. The income capital versus income ratio apparently is somehow growing, and that seems to be capital in the sense, for him, capital means the wealth. There's no difference between capital and the wealth of the individuals, partners who are contributing into this companies or organizations which produce something, which the produce becomes the income. And the income is shared, not equitably, but in a skewed and biased way. He says this capital income ratio, as it is growing, and on the other hand, the difference between the labor's contribution and the capital's contribution seems to be varying. That will eventually pump most of the wealth into the few individuals, and they might control to such an extent that it might create a nuisance. And of course, is projecting these things very much for United States of America and some of the European countries and Japan. And as far as China and India is concerned, he seems to project a different kind of a scenario. Essentially, this is what the point in this book is. It has a lot of statistics, a lot of data available with regards to percentage of income for the individuals. He says, for example, the universities themselves, I told you, on the endowments, they seems to secure about 8.2% like that. And some of the, very rich, wealthy industrious, some of them are even growing their income at a rate of about 30%, 25 to 30%, which is extremely high and not good for the economy in general. So by and large, I think the book has a wealth of material, and it is readable. Though it is quite big, it is kind of readable, and definitely a lot of things we can learn. Well, as I said, Amartya Sen book is completely different. This book is based on the empirical data and explaining the scenario that it seemed to exist over there, and the solutions that are offered also are like this taxation and so on. Whereas I, in a sense, I seem to favor because I have reviewed that book also, Inequality by Amartya Sen. I think I'll pull out the book so everybody can see it. If you can, hang on a minute. Yeah, sorry for that. This is the book I reviewed in the past, Inequality Re-Examined by Amartya Sen. That was quite good and very brilliant. It is a mathematical model, not based on empirical evidence. I'm sure he must have had a lot of other empirical studies also done towards that. And it also prescribes a procedural normative approach, which allows the state to take enough precautionary methods to see that every individual is given an equal opportunity to participate in the societal growth. Every individual, uses his capabilities to the fullest extent, so he can be he can lead a good life. Look, you have individuals who are not healthy, yet the society, the state has to give an opportunity for him to live in a good way. Not healthy, and therefore he might incur many medical bills and so on. In what way can the state can help him in getting over that? Capabilities means, let's say, for example, a woman, widowed, young, capable of doing many things, but the society and the taboos are such that she would not be allowed to go out and work in the real world or explore, increase her educational qualifications or participate in the business activities. Perhaps those kind of things, those kind of limitations will limit her capabilities. Even though she is capable, she cannot do it because the structure of the society is such that it doesn't give. So Amartya Sen prescribes a completely different kind of procedures which will allow every individual to grow. As far as Piketty's book is concerned, Piketty's book is more about what's happening at this juncture and what are the taxation and other things that we can do in order to reduce the inequality. After all, inequality is a very alarming issue right now. While even if you look at a country like United States of America, I think Los Angeles alone has more than 1 lakh destitutes who live on the street with virtually nothing. At the same time, the real estate over there is extremely high. You need maybe maybe $100 million to own a very good place in the heart of Los Angeles, right? In some of the good places in Beverly Hills and all. If you really look at the Bay Area, which is also one of the things he has mentioned in his book, in the Bay Area, there are people who are extremely rich and the real estate is very, very high. While in some other parts of the country, the real estate is very low, and that causes the migration. In what way can you bring reduce the inequality? This is all about. So Piketty's book, I did enjoy. It's very long. If somebody can shorten this thing, would be very, very good. But at the same time, as I said, I seem to, it's not a comparative study between Amartya Sen's book and Piketty's book, but I think I really understand the way the Amartya Sen has presented it. Both have presented a very, well, the picture is bleak. It's not they presented a bleak picture. The picture is bleak, especially with a change in technology, which is growing extremely rapidly, and things that you could have done for 15, 20 years in the past, you could do it perhaps very quickly within few days too. And, so that would allow a few wealthy individuals to grow their wealth even at an alarmingly high rate, which will therefore will throw away the other half, other 90% of the people into down below the averages income of the world. This is exactly what the content in this book is. And I will certainly recommend everybody to read it. It's readable. It's not difficult. On the other hand, Amartya Sen book was very, very, very tough. I think if you want to read Amartya Sen book, you got to be very patient, and you might have to support your reading with lots of other things too. But this book, Piketty's book, is very nice reading. It has lots and lots of details. I have not gone through the graphs and details of that, especially. So roughly that's what I would like to say. Thank you very much.